So we're starting to see people arrive in the attendees. Welcome, everybody. It's 7:30 in the morning. It's Thursday, April 23rd, and we are launching our first Nourish Breakfast Live. I hope everybody has a cup of coffee or tea, a snack. We're really excited to welcome our featured speaker today. Brittany, we're just going to give it a couple of moments. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for your greeting. Great to see you. And Elaine saying hello as well. Yeah, everybody, you know, we're a Portland-based women's leadership group, but I think we may have people joining us from outside of the city, which is great. So if you want to, you know, put in a brief hello, where you're coming from, whether you're in Portland or out, it's great just to see people's names and excitement to be here today. Hello, Karen. Got Portland, Oregon in the house, which is great. Milwaukee, awesome. All right, everybody. So we are recording this. So this will be available to anyone who is joining. Morning, Erin, and hi, Molly. I am really thrilled to welcome our featured speaker today. Brittany Von Matra is joining us today from Portland as well. She is the Director of Business Operations for Nike's Workplace Design, and she's also a Search Inside Yourself certified teacher. She's a deep seeker who's devoted to inspiring powerful change within organizations, small businesses, and teams. She's also the creator and founder of Lead Awake, an organization for leaders who want to challenge the status quo. Brittany has over 14 years of management experience with leading companies and brands, both in the US and Europe. During her career at Nike, she introduced mindfulness and emotional intelligence by hosting 2 pilot programs in 2 different geographies in partnership with Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. Search Inside Yourself began as a mindful leadership initiative within Google and is one of, I believe it was one of their most popular leadership offerings globally. So we are going to, when Brittany and I were talking about this event, of course, we were all supposed to be together as we meet at the Standard Insurance, and thank you so much to the Standard for your continued sponsorship. Obviously, bringing together 70 people for breakfast in a small room doesn't make sense now, but we are really confident that hopefully some of the things you're going to learn today will help you take care of yourself and show up for the people around you in the best way as we do navigate this unprecedented time. In order to lead confidently in the face of a volatile and changing world, we must turn to our greatest teachers, ourselves. Brittany believes that leadership development is synonymous with personal development, and we're thrilled to welcome her here today. Brittany, over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll tell you a little bit more about my personal story later, but I would like to get started with a journaling prompt. So if you could take out a piece of pen and a paper, or you can type on your computer as well. I want to explore these 2 questions. You'll have a couple minutes. What do you love about your work? And then actually, what are some of your biggest challenges? So just exploring that, also in light of what we're going through. What do you love about your work, and what are some of your biggest challenges right now? Just for the next minute or so, exploring what this is for you and what comes up. Taking a moment to finish your last thoughts, maybe writing a last word or two or finishing your sentence. And now I would like to hear from you. So if you could, we just source some ideas here. Maybe write what you love, one thing that you love about your work the most, and then one of the biggest challenges, and just put that in the chat if you feel called. And we have a couple comments here. I love the people I work with. The biggest challenge though is burning out or figuring out what's next. And Alicia says helping others and not getting fair pay. That's really big. Lindsay says, love producing something of substance that actually helps a group. So really having that value add. And Lainey says, love working with people to solve problems. Alicia says, dealing with difficult clients that are ungrateful for your services, right? It's always there. The positives and the negatives are always there. I can definitely attest to having on the sales side, being dealt with some difficult people for sure. Lindsay says, challenge strong personalities. Yes. So people have different ways of approaching things and different ideas than us. And sometimes we can like that or not like that. And we have to deal with those people all the time, also in a virtual space. Love, interesting work, challenge, can't break into upper management. I know it took me many years to get promoted at Nike. So it's never easy, but I always like to say a linear career path is not really always that interesting. So keep it up. This is great. Challenge sometimes with support from team. Yeah, like mobilizing people, getting people to work together. Love it. Positive interactions with clients. So good. Love making a difference in people's lives. Challenge, I want to do it all and need to regularly accept that I can't. Staying focused on the mission critical. So good. Awesome. Love this dialogue. So oftentimes when we come to these virtual spaces or different meetings in person, it's very common that while our bodies are here and physically we're interacting, sometimes in our mind, we can be somewhere totally different. So just for the purposes of arriving here into this virtual space, I want to take a moment to allow ourselves to land fully here in mind and body. So with that, I would like you to find a way to sit in your chair or wherever you're sitting on the sofa in a way that is relaxed and alert at the same time. So not too rigid, but just feeling very relaxed, but also not hunched over. And you can allow your gaze to fall in front of you, or you can fully close your eyes if you wish. And just begin noticing your breathing. The in-breath and the out-breath. And the quality of the breath. Perhaps the breath is deep or shallow. Not judging it or manipulating it in any way, just allowing it to be as it is in this moment. And simply stopping, noticing. And see if you can follow one full cycle of breath from the in-breath down through the throat to the base of the belly and out again, feeling the warmth of the breath as it exits the nostrils. Perhaps you have lots of thoughts coming and going, and just allowing those to be present here, not trying to chase any of them away, just accepting and allowing the thoughts to be here. And being curious and open and interested to what's ever arising for you, what's ever here. And taking one full inhale in and exhale out. And allowing your attention to return to our virtual space. So welcome everyone. Thank you, Kate, for the introduction. I'm Brittany. And as she mentioned, I work at Nike in workplace design. And then I also have my own consultancy where I teach the Search Inside Yourself program. And Search Inside Yourself was created and developed at Google. And in 2012, they spun it off to be available for companies and businesses and small business and government and education all across the world. And in the United States, we have about 200 teachers, and I'm one of those teachers. And it's just really exciting to share this curriculum that is so well produced and so well received. It's such a joy to be able to share it. And just a little bit about my life and who I am. I grew up in the United States in Washington, and I live in Oregon. And I just actually returned from a 6-year stay in Europe. So my husband's Belgian, and we have a 3-year-old son, Finn, which has been quite interesting to be working with a 3-year-old. So if he pops into the room, then you'll know that's my kid, or if you hear him. So yeah, I dove into this work probably at a young age, more in my early 20s. When I first started my career, I felt kind of shoved into a box that maybe wasn't meant for me or didn't celebrate all of who I was. And I just found that going from college into the working world, and I went into public consulting and in a public accounting firm, it was a big transition. And I started to realize that I needed some tools, and I needed to figure out how I was going to navigate this new life of mine. And so with that, I call it going to Brittany University. And I went to therapy and started to learn about my emotions and learn about myself. And that sent me on a bit of a journey into yoga and meditation. And then in 2015, I became a meditation teacher. And then shortly after I had my son, I wanted to be able to bring these tools and this work into the corporate setting, because I felt like, wow, people in the corporate setting really need this. And we're dealing with difficulties all the time, and stress and volatility and uncertainty and all the things that you guys listed as well, like difficulty with clients and personalities and balancing motherhood and life. So I found this program, and I decided, what the hell, I'm going to become a teacher of this. And so here I am, and it's been really exciting. And it's such a joy to be able to be here with you today. That's a bit about me. And a bit about the Search Inside Yourself program. It's comprised of these 3 areas. So emotional intelligence. So we follow the 5 facets of emotional intelligence as defined by Daniel Goleman. And Daniel Goleman, he basically popularized emotional intelligence when he wrote the book Emotional Intelligence. And he sits on the board of Search Inside Yourself, which is really outstanding, and that such easy access to this prolific leader in the field. And it's also supported by neuroscience. So neuroscience tells us that actually emotional intelligence is trainable, because what we think, what we do, and what we pay attention to in our life actually changes the form and the structure of your brain. So if you want to become more self-aware, or if you want to manage your emotions more, or you want to become more empathetic, you can. Our brains are malleable objects, and you can change them for the positive. And then this is all supported by mindfulness, because mindfulness in this context is just a returning again to the present moment, because you can't really train anything if you're not present, and if you're not really present with yourself and the world around you. So this is the Search Inside Yourself program in a 1-pager. And these are the 5 facets of emotional intelligence. So self-awareness, being able to understand the quality of your emotions, self-management, being able to move from compulsion to choice to really decide how you want to respond to your different triggers, and different triggers both internally and externally. Motivation, so learning your values and why do you actually show up to work every day? What's actually driving you? And then empathy, seeing things from another person's perspective. You know, how might this person feel in this situation? And that's really important as we look at work. And then lastly, social skills. And in SIY, we specifically talk with social skills around leading with compassion and communicating with insight. So for today, this is a short synopsis of the program, because this is actually a 2-day full program and we're just doing an hour. So we'll touch on self-awareness and empathy, but you'll likely see how we will hit on all of these throughout the practices. So I'm sure there's many things that you said when you wrote this morning that you love about your work, right? And then a lot of times it can look like this, especially nowadays with us at home, with our kids, with our spouses. We are living in very interesting times. And in these times, it's really difficult to stay present, right? It's difficult to stay present with ourselves. And then when we can't stay present with ourselves, it's also difficult to stay present with others. So when we're feeling a lot of things with ourselves and we feel kind of frenetic in our energy, it's really hard to actually connect with people at work or at home. It's also difficult to stay focused and productive. And there's a lot of distractions right now. There's always a lot of distractions, but I feel like it's heightened right now. A lot of distractions with news and uncertainty and what's going to happen. And yeah, it's difficult to be able to stay emotionally balanced in environments like this. So we need tools actually to help us along. And the military has a acronym for this sort of world, and they call it VUCA. So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And you've probably sensed that you've had a few VUCA moments throughout the past few weeks. A lot of uncertainty, a ton of complexity. We definitely are living in interesting times, and there's all this acronym is used to describe war-like situations, but there is also a war for our attention. Everybody wants our attention nowadays. Every marketing company, every algorithm, they're all striving to get our attention. And then in our personal lives, people want us to like their photo or attend their event, or everybody wants us to notice and to buy their product and engage with their brand. And where you place your attention really matters. And a lot of sociologists and psychologists are saying that attention is actually becoming the #1 commodity. Wherever people put their attention is really important. And you get to choose actually where you put your attention. So a little bit of statistics to just continue this conversation. So actually 47% of our waking life, we are spent in this mind-wandering state. So neuroscientists have found this to be true. And in this particular study, they would call people up during the day and they would ask them, are you present? And the people would say, no, I'm not present. And they would also ask, how are you feeling? Because when we're not present and we're mind wandering, we're thinking about the past or trying to predict and plan the future, we are not actually happy, because a lot of times we're not mind wandering to like a beach in Hawaii, maybe sometimes, but most of the time we're mind wandering to the uncertainty, the VUCA world, the volatility, thinking about how can I plan? How can I do what's best? Or I can't believe that situation just happened, and not being able to get over it, right? So this puts us in a state of anxiety and overwhelm when we're always in this mind wandering state. And while it's a great function of the brain, right, to be able to plan and to be able to reason, when we're habituated to it is when it becomes a problem. And 70% of leaders report not being able to be attentive in meetings. And I probably think this is even greater now that we're in virtual meetings. It's so easy to distract yourself, to look at your phone, to do other stuff on the computer. And I find when I do that, and I'm definitely guilty of that, is I see that I'm feeling more depleted. In fact, like when I exit a Zoom call and I've been multitasking the whole time, I feel even more depleted. So I think this is an interesting statistic that's probably going to increase during these times. And lastly, only 2% of leaders actually have time or make the time during their workday to manage their energy and their personal productivity. So this is an area that we can definitely work on. And the result of all of this is that we're on autopilot. And you might think of autopilot as like you're in your car, you drive to the grocery store and you get there, but you don't really know how you got there. You weren't really present for the drive. So this is a large portion of our life we're spending in this autopilot mode. And it has a few traits that you might also be familiar with. And it's when your attention is in the past or in the future. And right now, I think we have a lot of future fear, with the financial insecurity, the insecurities around health and well-being of ourselves and our family. It's really easy to mind wander to the future. Distraction, we are checking our devices roughly 150 times a day. So it's really easy to be distracted. Also, reactive and judgmental is an autopilot trait. So we might be thinking to ourselves during these times, I can't believe these people at the grocery store are not walking in the one-way line. I went to the grocery store the other day and some people were still confused about that, which I was becoming very reactive internally about it, or judgmental even. But everybody's processing things in a different way. And when we're on that autopilot, we can't really see it from their perspective. Or acting based on habit patterns and assumptions. And this is, it happens a lot in life when we are just habitually reacting in the same way, maybe toward our spouse, or maybe in the mornings we're always really grumpy and hard to get along with. So we have these certain behaviors that we just, when we're not aware of it, we just continue them. But fortunately, there is another way that we can live. And this quote from Viktor Frankl wrote A Man's Search for Meaning, and he survived in Auschwitz during the Holocaust. So he saw some of the biggest atrocities of the human race, right? And he says that, and he's also a psychologist, and he says that between stimulus, so everything that's coming at us, also internally, and our response, so how we respond, there's actually a small space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And then in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So what he's saying is that we cannot control everything that's going to happen in our life. There's going to be so much that we can't. Life is inherently uncertain and it's inherently fragile. And we have a lot of stimulus internally as well, right? Like our mind can go a million miles an hour and get us nowhere. But there is a little space. There's always a little space, and it's with our breath and with our ability to just stop and notice. That's the space. We can choose how we actually want to respond to anything that's happening. And that is where our freedom is. And that is something that anything can be taken away from us, but not our ability to choose how we want to respond. So it's a really key thing. So how then do we get off autopilot? We don't want to be living on this autopilot mode, right? We know that we want to be present for our families and our lives. So how then do we actually get off? And what neuroscience is pointing toward very concretely these days with all the studies that have been done is mindfulness is a really key tool. And you can think of mindfulness as the same as going to the gym, right? You are setting aside some time to train your mind to return again to the present moment. And then you start to see these benefits bleed into your life. You start to notice things more, and you notice that you're present more. And this is really what we're talking about when we say mindfulness, is just that continual returning to the present moment, getting off the autopilot. And there's a lot of definitions for mindfulness out there, but you can think of it as simply as being present. I'm present to the life that is right here, good or bad, whatever it is, what it is, but I'm present for it, and I'm awake. And then you can think about mindfulness then as this movement from autopilot into awareness. It's really as simple as that. And this brings us to our first domain of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness. And actually, mindfulness creates the grounds for self-awareness. And self-awareness is the foundation for all other emotional intelligence capacities. So you first have to be self-aware and aware of the quality of the emotions as they're arising within you, aware of your strengths, aware of your weaknesses, and also being able to draw upon the wisdom of your emotions, because your emotions are telling you very valuable information, and it's behooves of you to be able to create a nice relationship with that, and to be able to understand yourself from that depth, and to also understand that your emotions are not you. You know, you're experiencing them, and it's information. It's just weather patterns in the sky. So this is self-awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit about the science of around this, but first I want to go into a bit of a practice. So we have these integrated practices when we talk about in SIY program. We have integrated practices that are really simple things, bite size, on the go. And then we have more dedicated practices. So there's a couple of ways to practice mindfulness. And we are going to have a chance to go through both of these practices. So you can see that mindfulness actually can be used like throughout your day, or you can set aside specific time, just like you do at the gym when you set aside specific time to do something. So let's try an integrated practice together. And this is called a 3 breaths practice. And I use this a lot. And you can do this in stealth mode. Nobody has to know what you're doing. It's just an easy way to get off the autopilot and back into the awareness of what's happening, to create that space, right, between the stimulus and the response. And it's called a 3 deep breaths. And the first breath, I'll just demonstrate it. Bringing attention to the breath. So you might note the quality of the breath or where you feel the breath the most. And the second breath in, relaxing your body. I really recommend relaxing shoulders, relaxing jaw, letting the face be soft, the belly be full. And then the third breath in, asking yourself, what's important now? And not really like searching for the answer, but just whatever pops up in your mind. What's actually really important now? Okay, so let's try this together. So I'll invite you, the first breath in, to bring your attention to the breath, the quality of the breath. Second breath in, relaxing the body, the jaw, feeling supported by the chair. And the third breath in, asking yourself, what's important now? What's really important right now? And allowing your attention to come back into the space, and just use this practice whenever you feel, whenever you remember, and whenever you feel a little bit anxious or notice that you're distracted or that you are not focused at work, use this practice. I really recommend it. So there's been a ton of research about mindfulness in the past couple decades. You can see this hockey stick graph from PubMed, and a lot of it it's all driven really by the field of neuroplasticity. So what I mentioned before, what we think, what we do, what we pay attention to actually changes the form and the structure of our brain. And scientists, they first thought that the brain was just a static sort of object. You were born with it, you would grow it until the age, and it would form until the age of around 25. And then after that, you would pretty much level off and then atrophy. But now they know through neuroscientific studies that that's really not the case. We can change our brain our entire life. We can create different thought patterns within our brain. We can totally change our brain for the better. We can do what they call self-directed neuroplasticity. So we can actually engage in a way that we can change our brain, which is, I think, is fascinating. And one study by a neuroscientist, Judson Brewer, out of the United States, he wanted to simply know what is the difference between a meditator's brain and a non-meditator's brain. And so he looked at the default mode network. So the default mode network is the autopilot network. It's the one that we're on 50% of the time, obsessing about ourselves, worrying about the future, thinking about the past. And what he did was he put meditators in fMRI machines and non-meditators in fMRI machines, so functional magnetic resonance imaging machines. And he started to have them meditate. And he noticed right away that the meditators had a way less active default mode network. And they also had a really strong connectivity to their prefrontal cortex. So their prefrontal cortex, that's what we all have, which makes us human. It's our ability to cognitively process, to divert our attention, to have attentional control. It's how we learn, how we plan. It's really what makes us different than other species on the earth. And he noticed a really great connectivity between the default mode network and the prefrontal cortex, which suggests that when their mind was wandering, they could easily bring it back over and over again. One more study done by Antoine Lutz, who's a French neuroscientist. He wanted to study the stress response in meditators versus non-meditators. And to do that, he was going to look at the amygdala. So the amygdala is our most primitive brain part of our function. It's our reptilian brain. And it's constantly scanning our environments for threats and opportunities and mobilizing different emotions, particularly fear, fight, flight, freeze, in response to what the environment is presenting. And so again, meditators, non-meditators in fMRI machines, and what he would do is he would periodically apply a thermode to their hand, which is just a heat sensor that applies pain. So it initiates the amygdala response. So the graph in the middle is the response of the amygdala for the meditators and the non-meditators. So you can see when the thermode was applied, they both had a really high reaction in the amygdala. So they were both feeling the fight, flight, freeze. However, after it was removed, the meditators could easily get over the pain. It was no longer happening. And in the present moment, they were fine. So they were able to really reduce that amygdala response. But then what's most interesting is on the left-hand side, they had almost no anticipatory stress. So they knew the thermode was going to be applied to their hand again. They knew they were going to receive pain again, but they were not stressed out about it. They didn't have an amygdala response compared to the non-meditators. So if you apply this to regular life, you could think of this reoccurring meeting that you have to go to. Let's say you have to go to a reoccurring meeting with some very difficult personalities. And in the meeting, you're stressed, right? You have the amygdala response, you're feeling the fear, the fight, the freeze. However, afterwards, you leave the meeting and you're still stressed, thinking about the meeting, what happened in the meeting, right? And then next week you have to go to the meeting again. So you're having that anticipatory stress. But you can really reduce all of this with these short mindfulness practices. This is something that you can definitely change through practice. And this is some studies from the SIY program. So you don't have to be a long-term meditator to receive benefits. And the study or the graph on the left is pre-program to post-program. So 41% to 60%, the respondents said, when in conflict with someone, I take time to fully understand what's driving their perspective. So really being able to put yourself in the shoes of another person, that increased after just a 2-day program. And then the other graph on the right, I'm able to pause before reacting. So if you think about all those times maybe you wanted to send that fiery email, or perhaps you did, right? This is about creating that pause before I actually say something or do something. So you can receive benefits from just doing simple practices. So now I'd like to do a practice with you. This is going to be a little bit more of a dedicated practice, and it's going to be focused attention practice. So I'll just describe the practice for us. So first we're going to follow our breath. And simply just noticing the in-breath, noticing the out-breath, noticing the spaces in between each breath, just following the breath. And of course, since we are human, we are going to become distracted, right? Thinking about things that we have to do later today, thinking about something maybe that happened yesterday. This is the nature of the experience. And the third step is to notice the distraction. Yes, I have been distracted, right? I'm noticing that I'm distracted. And at this step, to not be judgmental towards yourself. Be very kind to yourself. Bring yourself back very easily, very gently, and reorientate your attention to the breath. Okay? So again, I would like you to find a way to sit that is relaxed and alert at the same time, and allowing your gaze to fall to a couple feet in front of you, or fully closing your eyes if you wish. And simply stopping, noticing the quality of the breath. Noticing the temperature of the breath as it enters the nostrils, the coolness entering the throat, down to the lungs. And the warmth of the breath as it exits the nose. And the breath is a great tool to use to bring your attention to the present moment, because you can only breathe in the present moment. In and out. And perhaps you can sense where you feel the breath the most. Maybe you feel it in the nostrils, or maybe you feel it in the abdomen and the belly. Simply noticing. And there is no wrong way to breathe. And if your mind has wandered, just gently, easily bringing it back to the sensation of the breath and where you feel the breath the most. And sensing the uniqueness of each inhale and each exhale. No two breaths are quite the same. And being curious, open, and interested. And see if you can follow one full cycle of breath. All the way from the inhale, the base of the belly, the fullness, and the exhale. And again, if your attention has wandered, Gently bringing it back to the breath. And to end our practice, taking a deep inhale in and exhale out, and allowing your eyes to flutter open and returning your attention to the space. So, a little summary before we continue on. We do need these skills to combat the VUCA world. We do need a way to deal with the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity of the world we're living in. And mindfulness, these tools that we practice, the integrated 3 breaths practice, as well as the more dedicated practice that we just did of the mindful breathing, this enables that movement from autopilot into awareness so that we can be more present and we can have that power to choose how we want to respond to the world around us. So now I'm going to be talking about empathy, and there are many reasons why empathy is important, and perhaps the most important reasons in the workplace is that it allows us to build a sense of meaningful relationships and trust with one another. So it's very important as we work with people to develop our empathy. And actually, empathy begins with self-awareness. So the practice that we just did, that's a way that you cultivate empathy in your life. And I want to talk quickly about a study that Google did. So they wanted to know what actually makes a team operate optimally. Like, what is it? Is it a combination of different backgrounds or skill sets, or is it a really charismatic leader? You know, what is it? And so they executed a project called Project Aristotle in 2012. And they started to look at this, and Google being a data company, they looked at thousands of different data points, and they had a difficult time figuring it out. And toward the very end of the project, there was one theme that started to really rise to the top of these perfect teams that they found, these teams that just completely gelled well together. They found that it was this quality called psychological safety. And psychological safety is really underpinned by empathy and trust and meaningful relationships. And it's this ability that team members feel they can be fully themselves, and they can feel that they can take risks in the environment, and their teammates are going to have their back. They feel super supported. It's almost like a family feeling, like no matter what I do wrong, I'm still going to be supported and I'm still going to be accepted in this environment. And that was the number one thing that created a great team. So it didn't have anything to do with the leader. It didn't have anything to do with the quality of the teammates and the skills that they had. It was really just how well they were empathetic with one another, how much they trusted one another. And there was other key things like dependability and structure and having meaning in your work. There was other key things, but psychological safety was really the number one. So then why do we find it so difficult to get people as leaders, to get people to work together and to gel together? And why do we as individual contributors and managers, why do we find it so difficult to work with other people? Well, the problem is that 50% of the time, right, we're on this autopilot trait. And maybe you noticed, like, talking with your spouse or with a friend, or even in a virtual space, maybe you're talking with them, but your mind is wandering off. You're not really connecting with them, or you're being a little bit reactive or judgmental. Maybe when you're talking with somebody, you're already like that monkey mind is giving judgments about them. So this is actually what's happening in the workplace as well. These autopilot traits are getting in the way of our connection. And we first need to connect with ourselves before we can actually connect with another person as well. So that's paramount. So we know that we know that mindfulness, we've talked about this, is the movement from autopilot to aware. So empathy then is, once we're aware and we're aware of ourselves and we have that self-awareness, we can then extend that awareness to others, right? So it's really depending on how aware we are, how self-aware is how much we can actually be aware of another. And they call this in neuroscience mirror neurons. So when we can identify well with our emotional framework and what we're feeling, we can actually, it's a bit of brain tango that's happening with the other person. We can actually sense what the other person is feeling as well. When we have that heightened state of self-awareness, we can extend that and have this really interesting dynamic and really strong connection with somebody else. So it's pretty cool as human beings how well we can connect. We're a lot more alike than we are different. So with that in mind and the idea of empathy, I would like to do another practice. And this is going to be a just like me and kindness practice. And after this, we'll do just a bit of journaling before we wrap up. So again, finding a way to sit that is relaxed and alert at the same time, and allowing your gaze to fall in front of you or fully closing your eyes if you wish. And just becoming aware of your breath, connecting with the breath, connecting with yourself. And I want us to consider a few things. We're in this virtual space together, all these women with us. And these women in this group, they all have a body and a mind, just like me. We all have feelings, emotions, and thoughts, just like me. Everyone in this group has at one point in their life been sad, disappointed, angry, hurt, or confused, just like me. The people in this group have at one point in their life experienced physical and emotional pain and suffering, just like me. And the people in this group wish to be free from pain and suffering, just like me. And all the women in this group have also experienced times of immense joy and happiness, just like me. And all the women in this group wish to be healthy, to be loved, to have fulfilling relationships and success, just like me. And the women in this group wish to be happy, just like me. And taking a deep breath. Now let's allow some wishes to arise for the women in this group. I wish for the women in this group to have the strength and the resources to navigate whatever challenges are arising in their life at this moment. I wish for all the women in this group to be free from any pain or suffering. And I wish for the women in this group to be happy, just like me. And the women in this group are fellow human beings in this experience with me. And now let's extend our wishes even further. May everyone be free from suffering, and may they be at peace. May all our coworkers and friends and family and acquaintances that we do not know May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. And may they be at peace. And extending these wishes even further, may all beings be happy. May they all be free from suffering. And may they all be at peace. And lastly, don't forget yourself. May I be happy. And may I be free from suffering. And may I be at peace. And for the last moment, just allowing your attention to rest on your breath. Noticing what it's like to give and receive these well wishes within this group and beyond. And feeling the connection. And taking a deep inhale in and exhale out. And returning your attention to the space. And now I'd like to transition into a couple journaling prompts. So you'll have a minute or so to write about each of these two prompts. And the first prompt is, I feel most connected when. Just exploring when you feel most connected and see what comes up for you. I feel most connected when. And wrapping up that prompt with your last sentence, your last couple words. And moving into the next prompt, ways in which I could bring more connection into my life are. Again, ways in which I could bring more connection into my life are. I'm just exploring that for the next minute and a half or so and see what comes up. Ways in which you could bring more connection into your life. All right, wrapping that one up. You can revisit it later if you haven't finished.
Brittany, it looks like we have somebody who wants to share something. Lori, do you want me to unmute you so you can share your thoughts or ask your question?
Questions. Source some ideas.
So Lori, you're able to speak if you would like, or you can put something in the chat if that was just a Zoom error, which no problem.
Okay, it was a complete Zoom error. So I hit the button. Sorry.
No worries at all.
Thank you.
Of course.
If anybody wants to share, maybe one way that you think you could bring more connection into your life is. Shannon says, I feel most connected when I'm engaged, listened to, and feel like I add value to the situation. And Lynette says, compassionate listening and being present for people. Jane says, oh my God, I can't put down my stupid phone more often. Creating more definition between work and not work. That's so true. And that will help you connect with yourself, I think, for sure. Being vulnerable and honest, Tammy. Carmen, I feel more connected when I put my phone away. Me too, especially with being with my kid. Lori, when I let go of my ego, yeah, the monkey mind, the autopilot, the wanting, the planning, the doing. Kat saying, feeling free, focused, loved, and strong is when I'm feeling most connected. Alani says, bring more connection into my life by recognizing and appreciating the strengths of those around me. Yeah, everybody's bringing something unique to the table. When I create art, getting and giving hugs. Slowing down, making time to connect with myself first. Showing up to deliver flowers to a friend's birthday yesterday filled me with joy. More of that. It's beautiful. Yes, and in times of heightened vulnerability, you can almost sense even more of a human connection, that we're really all in this together, and we really start to understand more that we need each other. We're definitely more alike than we are different. Getting on the floor literally with my children on their plane. Yeah. Getting more connected, slowing down, making time for myself first. Yeah, you can't give from an empty cup. Realize I can't and shouldn't do it all. Oh, I really resonate with that. So good. All right, just wrapping up. Here is a short micro practice. So we did more of a dedicated kindness practice, but here's a really easy way to shift to connection, one of those bite-sized integrated practices that you can use. And it's based on the 3 breaths practice. So the first breath, settling the mind, allowing it to quiet down a little bit. The second breath, seeing a similarity with the person that you're interacting with. And then the third breath, offering kindness. So what is one way that I can offer kindness? And it doesn't have to be anything overt. You could just say in your mind's eye, I wish for this person to be healthy. I wish for this person to be happy. And maybe it's the grocery store clerk that you see all the time that you don't know. You can practice this. You can settle your mind. You can see a similarity with that person. And then you can offer just a bit of kindness. And it's funny when you do this practice. Let's say you're going to go into a difficult meeting with somebody. If you do this practice, the way you show up is totally different, and they notice it. It's that mirror neuron thing. Like the people notice that your intention is pure. So this is a really nice, easy, bite-sized practice to implement as it relates to connection.
Brittany, it looks like we have a question from Shannon in the chat. How can folks learn more about meditation, or maybe connect with you after this if they're interested in a deeper practice than, of course, this 1-hour introduction can provide?
Definitely. I would like to send, if it's okay with you, Kate, like a recap to this workshop with 3 to 5 days of daily practice, recorded practice that everybody can use, as well as some different resources and my contact information. That would be great. I can also share some different apps that are out there that I particularly love. And yeah, there's so many resources I could share, but it'd be great to do it via like a bulk email.
Perfect. So
Okay.
yeah, we will certainly do that after today. And it looks like Tamara wants to know if you're willing to share these slides, that would be another great takeaway. And then, if you all do want to connect with Brittany post this, you're very welcome to find her at Lead Awake. She'll include her contact information, and I know you're on LinkedIn as well, Brittany.
Yeah, definitely. So just wrapping us up here, if you take nothing else away from this program, remember how it is to connect with others. Remember what it's like to give and receive well wishes. And when we move from autopilot into awareness, what we really are creating the grounds for is connection, which is the most important. So here's a synopsis of the practices that we went through. I will definitely send this out via email to Kate to get to all of you all. And I continue, I'm here as a resource for you. I'll provide this is my information here if you want to just jot it down. There's a lot of information also at silly.org. So it's Search Inside Yourself Leadershipinstitute.org. And yeah, it's really wonderful to share all of this with you. And I look forward to connecting again.
So thank you, Brittany, so much. I think, I actually had the great luxury to do the 2-day Search Inside Yourself program last fall. And I think if this is something, obviously people aren't coming together publicly, but I do believe, Brittany's, that's something that you could reach out to Brittany for. You could certainly go to the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute as well. And many of you shared this in the chat as well, right? Like connection is really important, but first we have to really take care of ourselves and give ourselves that compassion and empathy. And we just want to thank you all for being part of the WCL community. We're going to be connecting virtually for the next uncertain amount of time, but we're all really looking forward to coming back together. And if you're not aware, or if you're new to us, outside of our monthly Breakfast Nourish, which this was that, we are hosting on Tuesdays and Thursdays a dine-in. So it'll be slightly shorter, it's about half an hour, but we're tapping our wonderful community of coaches and consultants to bring you learning opportunities and abilities to connect while we're all stuck at home. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Brittany. This was such a wonderful way to start the day. I'm seeing that in the chat a lot as well. And love you all. Stay strong and stay healthy out there. And we are going to get through this.
We are. Thank you so much, Kate. Thanks, everyone. Really great.